we're going to start out just with a quick overview of CFHE. We talked a little bit last night about the structure and how there wasn't one, and the organization and how there wasn't one. The website is the CFHE. I mean, if you look at that, that is our public face, and I gotta say, CFA does a fabulous job on this website. Everything is there, and it is the way that we communicate what we stand for. I wanted to also talk to you about what we've done since the last meeting in May, I believe it was, yes, in Columbus, Ohio. And as part of that process and progress, we have published several on the issues papers. In your packet is the series of 3 papers that got huge coverage in national media. And they were the MOOC papers that were written, if you will, not for insiders like us, but for outsiders in the public, and that's why they got that incredible coverage. We had NPR doing a whole section on MOOCs, the Atlantic, U.S. News and World Report, the Chronicle. In these times, all of those media outlets picked up on CFHE, and hopefully, as we'll see as we go through the rest of this program, many of us have been able to build on the work of CFHE to legitimate and say things that we can't say publicly, and it gives legs to all of us. The other big thing we've done since we last met was Campus Equity Week. Joe, will you stand up and show them the t-shirts? That was a huge event nationwide, and we worked with New Faculty Majority, who was, of course, one of the supporters of CFHE. And we...
For people who aren't English teachers, the scarlet letter, the scarlet A.
We got it. We got it. So that got tremendous coverage as well through the AP, CNN, ABC, TV News, The Nation, and The Street. And just interestingly enough, yesterday, HuffPost did a live interview with Fred Cole from UUP and Mike Fabricant from PSC. And you guys gave a great plug for CFHE at the end and rolled into this meeting. So I would imagine other people will hear more from those outlets. We would ask if your organization is not listed on the supporters list, that you give us your information and join. It costs nothing. We don't have dues. We don't send mailings. So we just need your email. And I'm going to kind of be quiet. I have 2 pieces of business to do. One is Steve Teixeira asked me to remind you that the paper on the promises and perils of online student services is over on the side table, and this is another issue that will impact all of us. It is about online, in SUNY they call it concierge advising, which is kind of interesting, and it does impact our professionals as well as our academics. I'm going to turn this over to Lil Taiz, who, if those of you who might not know her, is the current president of the California Faculty Association. She is a professor of history at Cal State LA. And she went to City College of San Francisco when it cost $5. You just had to buy an ID and you walked in the door. She went on to San Francisco State and UC Davis. And Lil is going to talk about how to build a campaign, and she and Susan started this campaign, so I think she's got real credibility here. Lil.
Thank you. Well, this PowerPoint, which I'm going to try to zip through because we got a lot to do today, is really based on a lot of things that we learned in CFA over the years as we tried to figure out how to win for a change instead of losing all the time. Many of you already know this stuff, and please forgive me if you do. We just really wanted to make sure that everybody was kind of on the same page and thinking about organizing as we moved into the exercises for the rest of the day's scenarios. I don't know about you, but one of the things I walked away yesterday from the discussion of the experience of City College, our folks at City College, is that you really want to have your base built before the shit hits the fan. And so that really is kind of what we're talking about today. The good news and the bad news is that there are plenty of issues hitting our campuses around which we can organize and can build our base. This is in the conversation that we've built into the PowerPoint. It's mostly focusing on how to organize ourselves, and we'll talk a little bit about the need to reach out to supporters. But this piece focuses primarily on getting ourselves organized. We found that building your base happens best in the context of some kind of campaign, and that's why I say there are plenty of issues coming our way around which you can organize. When we first started, I think a lot of us thought, academic workers, it's a little tough to get them going, carrying a picket sign, getting them do stuff. But I think what we've seen over and over again is if there's a compelling reason, you can move your colleagues to take action. The last piece of this is that I would not kid you for a minute, it is seriously hard work. It's the hardest work that I've ever done. Doing the work to get your base built is a heavy lift, but really is well worth the effort. I want to look first at a couple of things we tend to do before we start a campaign out. One is to assess our strengths. We have 23 campuses, so one of the very first things we do is think about, okay, where is our strength in the 23 campus system? But if you are one campus, you might sit and think, okay, where is our strength? Which departments are we strongest? Which are our colleagues who are our strongest? And we rank them 1 to 4. 1 is ready to go. 2, with a little pushing, you might get them into a 1 and get them to be helpful. 3, and you might get them to a 2, and who knows, a miracle might happen, you get them to a 3. A 4 is the one who slams the door in your face, and to be honest with you, only you, if you have nothing better to do, would you bother talking to them again. It really is important to focus your resources, to focus on the places that are going to pay off for you. If you have time, sure, the hopeless cases, go ahead and do it. But I think for the most part, it helps you prioritize your work, the distribution of resources and time and energy, all of which are very precious in a campaign setting. We also like to establish a very clear goal of what we're going to try to carry out. Maybe we've decided we're in bargaining and we really need to put a face on negotiations. So our goal is going to be somehow or another to put a face on, to let the folks we're bargaining know who they're bargaining with. Or we might have a goal of getting a decisive vote on a strike vote, which we did a couple of times in the past. Or we might decide we really need to get more involved in political activity, and so we want to move more people into walking precincts and doing that kind of work. You'll see on the PowerPoint that there's some numbers. Part of what we also do in establishing a goal is to set some numbers some goals for ourselves. For the strike vote, we wanted to get 70% of our people turned out, and of those 70%, 85 voting yes. In the course of doing that, we got 94% voting yes. So the work really generates its own success, I think, but establishing a clear goal is really an important part of that. So we're setting a goal, we're assessing our strength, and then, of course, you have to make a plan of how you're going to do it. So the plan has several parts, certainly in our experience. First off, you want to figure out who you're going to be able to work with. Who is your team? You want to then assess your capacity. Your capacity will determine the kind of action that you think you'll be able to take. You want to select an action that matches the capacity. So if you don't think you're going to be able to get 1,000 people out, or you don't have to have a mass demonstration is my point. You could actually do a really good visibility action with 15 people. 40 balloons, 15 people, you got a nice visible action, and getting pressed for that action, which we're going to talk about in the media section, would be an important part of it. We also find that if we're moving toward a final action, having smaller actions build up to that final culminating action is really helpful in building interest. So you might start out with a sticker day. Get everybody to wear a sticker. You might move then to an email day or a fax day or a phone day. You're going to phone the administration or whoever your target is. You might move then to informational picketing, and your final action may be some kind of a rally. But the point is, whatever you choose, what we found is that if we can escalate each time the action builds on the one before, you're really going to end up more likely to have a successful event. The next part of the plan, certainly in our experience, or not necessarily sequentially, but part of the plan is also figuring out when you want to do your activity and then work backwards. So your calendar each week or each month, depending on how much time you have, each of those squares there should be filled with the tasks that you need to carry out in order to be on time when you get to the end, to have everything in place. So set the date, work backwards, and then do the work that you need to be doing each week. We also find that it is, as I think I mentioned in an earlier slide with the goals, setting targets for ourselves has been very, very helpful. Targets tell us how we're doing with our work. So if you decide that you want to turn out 1,000 people or you want to turn out 100 people, you will know if you track how many people have, for example, signed commitment cards. We finally got our faculty used to signing commitment cards. I won't tell you that it wasn't a heavy lift. People don't, why am I signing this? Why do you need my phone number? It took a minute, but people have gotten used to it now. And what it means is that week by week by week, we know exactly who we've talked to, we know how many people we've talked to, and we know how far we are in achieving our goal. And you want to sort of go a little bit over your goal, but you're going to then use those commitment cards to harass them later so that they actually turn out for your event. So it's helpful in that way. But setting a target and tracking how you get to that target really does help us in the end achieve the goal that we've set out to do and distribute our scarce resources again. There we go. So all that's the planning, and then the real work happens. I think we heard from our folks at City College that face-to-face conversation is the very, very best you can do. So getting people committed to do the work face-to-face is best. So we do a lot of door knocking, walk through the halls, knock on doors. We do phone banking to pester people to get them to sign up for events. We found personal email, bulk email is great, but it gets down the list pretty quickly. But a personal email from someone they know can really be helpful. If you know a campus leader, someone who is respected on campus, getting that person to author an email that you can send out advising folks why he or she is going to participate, that has been really helpful in making it easier to get in the door and get people committed. We've also done things, we're a multi-campus system, so we've done things like get an engineering faculty member from one campus to author a letter that gets sent out to engineering faculty at another campus. And that builds a kind of sense, well, if it's okay for that engineer, maybe it's okay for me to do this too. So those are kinds of things that you might think about in terms of developing your turnout so that you can hit your targets. Oops. There we go. Skip it. It's also important, I know a lot of us are academics and we like to speak in footnotes. And footnoted messages on a flyer don't work. We found that out. So you want to really have as simple and clear a message as you can possibly manage. So it takes some work, but you really have to force yourself to keep it simple. Now I would advise, because faculty are faculty, that the more detailed thinking behind the simple message should be in your back pocket. So we put our more complex stuff in some place on the website, so if someone says, hey, you're saying X, Y, or Z, where's the evidence for it? We just point them to the website. If you don't have a site, some piece of paper that you can hand them that has the numbers and the detail and the data. But using that detailed data to convey a message and get people moving, it'll slow you down because people don't have time to become experts. Everybody's awash in work. And so what we have to do is distill the complex ideas and get something out there that's straight, that's punchy, and simple to get your head wrapped around. And with 23 campuses, I think one of the things I'm most proud about is that in the course of the years, we've managed to develop ways to develop a message that all 23 campuses can articulate. So if a media person goes to Arcata and talks to someone in Humboldt or San Diego, they'll get the same message from the leadership there because we've kept it the same and punchy and simple and not complicated. We also advise, we have 23 campuses, so we do roadshows so that we take the messaging to all 23 campuses. I think if you have one campus, you might do something like that through the departments to make sure that all parts of the campus are hearing the same message from one source and getting on board with it. It also helps you vet your message. If you take a roadshow out and people are peppering you with questions, note to self, something's wrong with your message, you might want to go back and tweak it, but it's the best way to get it out there and get people thinking about what you're doing. This graphic represents kind of the wholeness of a campaign in CFA land. There are usually a lot more circles going around it, but our goal is in the center. Whatever we're trying to do is in the center of that. And the one down in the lower right-hand corner where it says faculty, the green one, that's the one I've been talking about. And really, in the end, that's the most important part of the work, is to get people engaged. But there are other parts too. You may feel like, if you're working on a budgetary issue, that you need to do some stuff lobbying or some work in the Capitol. And you would add that. Our friends from City College have a legal strategy going. So another circle would be a legal strategy, and you might come up with any number of things that you're going to be working on. And you'll see the top three, student, community, and labor support. Those are our allies that almost every campaign needs to reach out to in order to have a successful campaign. So this is sort of what we think a successful campaign looks like. So most of this has been about internal organizing and getting our base built, but it's really important as you do that to not forget to include the students and other allies, because you will find that our issues affect them, and it isn't really that difficult to get students organized. As a matter of fact, it's easier in some ways, and a lot of faculty will prefer to do that then organize their colleagues. Their colleagues are a little heavier lift. We have to get them out too. You can't have a rally or an action that's all students in aid of an issue that's important to faculty. We really have to get our own folks out there to be a part of that. It's important that you share what worked with each other. I think what we're doing here, and this is always I think going to be a good place for us to share strategies that have worked for us in various campaigns. So we're going to hear more about that this morning. Keep track of anybody who has participated, so all those commit cards that you've collected, hire a student, get somebody to database those. That is gold. That's what you're going to use for the next thing that you have to do as you go on and build your capacity. Debrief the work, talk to each other about what worked and what didn't work, and then, although it seemed goofy to me at first, but I've been astonished at how much people appreciate some kind of recognition. If you worked your butt off, somebody should give you some strokes for having done it, and people do incredibly appreciate that. So, organizing around some issue will build our base, and I think it's really clear that that's what we're going to need to do if we're going to fight back on these issues, and we should never forget why we're doing it.